What would you do if saving one life meant stepping into a war you could never escape? Tonight, I'm bringing you a story of betrayal, survival, and a woman who went from invisible to unstoppable. A single note, a moment of mercy, and everything changed forever. Stay with me until the very end. This is a story that will leave you breathless. And when you finish, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The crystal chandelier overhead cast fractured light across white tablecloths, turning the dining room of Aurelius into something out of a dream. Soft piano music drifted through the air, blending with the quiet murmur of Chicago's elite as they savored $30 appetizers and $100 bottles of wine. Lena Carter moved through it all like a ghost. She'd perfected the art of invisibility over 3 years of service here. Head down, smile polite, movements efficient. Rich people didn't want to see their servers. They wanted their needs anticipated, their glasses filled before they emptied, their plates cleared the moment the last bite disappeared. So Lena gave them exactly that. She was 26 years old, exhausted down to her bones, and completely unremarkable in every way that mattered to the people dining here tonight. Her reflection in this polished brass cart told the same story it always did. Dark hair pulled back tight, minimal makeup, the kind of face that blended into backgrounds. She'd learned young that being noticed meant being vulnerable, and Lena had spent most of her life trying to stay small. "Table 12 needs water," Michelle hissed as she rushed past, balancing a tray of champagne flutes. "And don't forget, VIP section tonight. No lingering, no small talk. In and out." Lena nodded, filling her pitcher from the service station. The VIP section occupied the entire north corner of the restaurant, separated from the main dining room by frosted glass panels and velvet ropes. It was where Chicago's most dangerous people came to pretend they were civilized. She'd served mob lawyers there, corrupt politicians, CEOs with blood on their balance sheets. Tonight's VIP was something else entirely. Adrian Voss sat at the center table like a king holding court, his presence commanding the space in a way that had nothing to do with the expensive suit he wore. He was maybe 35, with the kind of face that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so cold. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to calculate the value of everything they touched. Black hair styled with casual precision. Lena had heard the whispers about him. Everyone who worked at Aurelius had. Adrian Voss, Korean-American crime boss who'd built an empire before he turned 30. Ruthless, brilliant, untouchable. The kind of man whose enemies disappeared so thoroughly that people stopped asking questions. And sitting across from him, laughing at something he'd just said, was Elena Moretti. She was exactly what Lena wasn't, stunning in an effortless way, with honey blonde hair that caught the light and a smile that could make men forget their own names. Her red dress probably cost more than Lena's monthly rent. A massive diamond engagement ring glittered on her left hand. They made a striking couple, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Lena approached their table with practiced caution, pitcher in hand. "Would you care for more water?" Her voice was soft, professional, designed not to intrude. Adrian barely glanced at her. "Fine." Elena didn't look at her at all. Lena refilled their glasses, already preparing to retreat, when Elena's phone buzzed. The woman checked it with a quick glance and something flickered across her face. Excitement? Satisfaction? It vanished too quickly for Lena to be sure. "Excuse me, darling," Elena said, rising gracefully. "I need to powder my nose." Adrian nodded, his attention already back on the tablet in front of him. Lena should have left then, should have returned to her other tables, should have minded her own business, should have remembered that people like her didn't survive by getting curious about people like them. But something made her linger near the service station, organizing napkins that didn't need organizing, polishing silverware that was already spotless. And that's when she heard it. Elena stood just beyond the frosted glass partition, phone pressed to her ear, voice low but clear enough to carry to anyone paying attention. "Everything's in place," Elena said. "The moment he leaves the restaurant, your men move. No witnesses, no mistakes." Lena's hands froze on the napkin she was folding. "I don't care how you do it," Elena continued, her voice sharp with impatience. "Just make sure it looks like a robbery gone wrong. The ring needs to be found on my finger when they find me. Traumatized fiancé? tragic victim. We'll have control of everything before his people even finish identifying the body. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. She forced herself to keep moving, to keep her expression neutral, even as her mind raced. This was insane. This couldn't be real. She must have misheard, must have misunderstood. He suspects nothing, Elena said, and there was genuine pleasure in her voice now. Adrian Voss, the great strategist, the man who sees threats everywhere, and he never saw me coming. By midnight, he'll be dead, and I'll own everything he built. The call ended. Lena's hands were shaking so badly she had to set down the water pitcher before she dropped it. Elena walked past her moments later, smile perfectly in place, and returned to Adrian's table like she hadn't just ordered his execution. Lena stood frozen at the service station, mind screaming at her to move, to do something. To what? Call the police? And tell them what? Exactly. That she'd overheard what might have been a murder plot against a known crime boss? They'd laugh her out of the station. Worse, they might tip off Elena, and then Lena would be the one who disappeared. Walk away. The thought came clear and cold. This isn't your problem. These aren't your people. You have your own life, your own troubles. Let monsters kill monsters. Her father's face flashed through her mind, pale and hollow in that hospital bed, machines breathing for him while Lena worked double shifts to pay bills that never stopped coming. She'd been visiting him every night after work, sitting beside him in the ICU, talking to a man who couldn't hear her, praying for a miracle she couldn't afford. Lena knew about choosing between impossible options, knew about being trapped by circumstances beyond her control, knew what it felt like to be powerless while the world made decisions about your life. She looked at Adrian Voss sitting calm and unsuspecting at his table, moments away from walking into an ambush. He was a criminal, probably a killer himself, the kind of man who'd built an empire on violence and fear, but he was also a human being, and Elena was going to have him murdered. 45 seconds. That's all the time Lena had to make a choice that would change everything. She could walk away, finish her shift, go home, pretend she'd never heard anything. Or she could do something monumentally stupid. Lena's hands moved before her brain could override them. She grabbed a napkin from the stack, pulled the pen from her apron pocket, and wrote in quick, shaking letters, "Your fiancé betrayed you. They're in position." She folded the napkin, pressed it flat, and picked up the water pitcher with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. Professional smile. Steady movements. Don't think about what you're doing. "More water, sir?" Her voice came out steadier than she'd expected. Adrian glanced up, and for just a second their eyes met. His were dark, calculating, entirely unreadable. "No." His tone was dismissive. Lena set the folded napkin beneath his water glass as she topped it off, the movement so quick and subtle that Elena, now back at the table, never noticed. "Of course," Lena said, already backing away. "Enjoy your evening." She forced herself to walk at a normal pace back to the service station, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. Her heart pounded so hard she thought the entire restaurant could probably hear it. What had she just done? She busied herself with clearing a nearby table, hands moving on autopilot while her mind spun in circles. Maybe he wouldn't see it. Maybe he'd ignore it. Maybe... The sound of Adrian's chair scraping back cut through her thoughts. Lena risked a glance toward the VIP section. Adrian stood beside the table, the napkin in his hand, his expression carved from stone. He said something to Elena, too quiet for Lena to hear, and the woman's smile faltered. Then Adrian turned and looked directly at Lena. Their eyes locked across the dining room, and in that moment, she saw something flicker in his gaze. Recognition, calculation, and something else she couldn't quite name. He knows, she thought. He knows it came from me. Elena said something sharp, rising from her seat, but Adrian was already moving, not toward the exit, toward the kitchen. Everything happened at once. The lights went out. Someone screamed, glass shattered, and the world exploded into chaos. "Everybody down!" The shout came from near the entrance, followed immediately by the crack of gunfire. The dining room erupted in panic. People dove under tables, screams filled the air, and Lena found herself pressed against the wall, mind blank with terror. More gunshots, closer now. The kitchen doors burst open and men poured through. 3 of them, dressed in black, guns raised. This was the ambush. The one meant for Adrian. But Adrian wasn't where he was supposed to be. Movement flickered in Lena's peripheral vision. Adrian emerged from behind the service station like a shadow come to life, and what happened next seemed impossible. He moved with the precision of someone who'd spent a lifetime in violence. The first gunman never saw him coming. Adrian's hand shot out, redirecting the weapon as it fired, the bullet punching through the ceiling instead of flesh. A brutal strike to the throat dropped the man choking to his knees. The second gunman swung his weapon around, but Adrian was faster. He closed the distance in 2 strides, caught the man's wrist, and twisted until something snapped. The gun clattered to the floor. A vicious elbow to the temple, and the second attacker went down. The third man got a shot off. Lena flinched at the sound, but Adrian had already moved, dropping into a crouch as the bullet passed overhead. He kicked out, sweeping the gunman's legs. The man fell hard, and Adrian was on him in an instant, movements cold and efficient. Silence fell, broken only by sobbing from somewhere in the dining room. Adrian stood among the bodies, barely breathing hard, and turned toward Elena's table. She was gone. "Clever girl," Adrian said softly, and Lena realized with a jolt that he was talking to her. His gaze found her against the wall, eyes intense. "You just made yourself either very valuable or very dangerous." Footsteps pounded in the hallway, more of them coming. Adrian moved toward her and Lena's paralysis broke. She stumbled backward, but he was faster, catching her wrist in a grip that was firm but not painful. "Listen very carefully," he said, voice low and urgent. "More are coming. They saw you give me that note, which means you're a target now. You have 2 choices. Come with me and maybe survive, or stay here and definitely don't." I just wanted to—" "No time." He pulled her toward the kitchen. "Move. Now." Lena's legs obeyed before her brain caught up. They burst through the kitchen doors into chaos, staff huddled in corners, pots scattered across the floor, the back door hanging open. Adrian pulled her through it into the alley, and the cold November air hit her like a slap. A black car waited at the end of the alley, engine running. Adrian dragged her toward it, and Lena's mind finally caught up to what was happening. She'd just gotten pulled into something she couldn't possibly understand, couldn't possibly survive. "Please," she gasped. "My father, he's in the hospital. I can't just—" Adrian yanked open the car door, his face illuminated by the interior light. "Your father is why you did this, isn't he?" It wasn't really a question. "You saw someone about to die and you thought of him." Lena stared at him, frozen. "Get in the car," Adrian said, and this time it wasn't a suggestion. "Or they'll use him to find you. Is that what you want?" Gunshots echoed from inside the restaurant. Lena got in the car. Adrian slid in beside her, and the driver, a massive man with a scar across his jaw, hit the accelerator. The car shot forward, tires squealing, and Lena watched through the rear window as armed men burst into the alley behind them. "Lost them at Madison Street," the driver said, his voice surprisingly calm. 3 vehicles attempted pursuit, all neutralized. "Good." Adrian's attention shifted to Lena, and she shrank back against the leather seat. "What's your name?" "Lena. Lena Carter." "Well, Lena Carter," Adrian settled back, somehow looking completely relaxed despite everything that had just happened. "You just saved my life and ruined your own in the same breath. I hope you're ready for what comes next." I didn't mean to—" She couldn't seem to form complete sentences. "You overheard Elena's phone call." It wasn't a question. "What exactly did you hear?" Lena's mouth went dry. She could still lie, could claim she'd misunderstood, that it was a mistake. But Adrian's eyes told her he'd know. This man made a living reading people, finding weaknesses, exploiting fear. "She said everything was in place," Lena whispered, "that the moment you left the restaurant, her men would move, that you'd be dead by midnight and she'd own everything you built." Something dangerous flickered across Adrian's face. "And you decided to warn me. Why?" "I don't know. It was the truth. I should have walked away. I almost did. But I couldn't." "Conscience." Adrian said the word like it was something foreign. "How inconvenient." The car turned sharply, throwing Lena against the door. She caught a glimpse of the Chicago skyline through the tinted windows before the driver pulled into an underground parking garage. Where are we going? Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. Somewhere safe. Adrian's phone buzzed and his expression darkened as he read the message. Or as safe as anywhere gets right now. The car descended deeper into the garage, past level after level of concrete and shadow. Finally, they stopped in front of an unmarked steel door. Out, Adrian said. Lena stumbled from the car on shaking legs. The driver moved to open the steel door, and she caught a glimpse of a corridor beyond, sleek, modern, completely at odds with the industrial garage. Marcus, Adrian said to the driver, status report. Elena went dark the moment shooting started. Her personal security detail extracted her through the kitchen. She was gone before the first body hit the floor. Marcus's voice was professional, detached. We've got feelers out, but she knew our protocols. She's in the wind. She's not in the wind, Adrian said coldly. She's with Lucien. The name meant nothing to Lena, but Marcus's expression changed. You're sure? A betrayal this coordinated? This personal? Adrian's jaw tightened. Elena didn't plan this alone. She doesn't have the resources or the connections, but my dear half-brother does. Half-brother. Lena filed that away, trying to piece together a situation she was wildly unequipped to understand. They moved through the steel door into a corridor that belonged in a luxury hotel, polished floors, recessed lighting, artwork on the walls. Adrian led the way with Marcus flanking them, and Lena followed because she didn't know what else to do. How much does she know? Marcus asked, jerking his chin toward Lena. Enough to be a problem. Adrian stopped in front of an elevator, pressing his palm to a scanner, but also enough to be useful. We should verify her story, run background, check for connections to... Already done. Adrian pulled out his phone, showing Marcus a screen Lena couldn't see. Lena Carter, 26, works at Aurelius for 3 years. Father in ICU at Northwestern Memorial. Massive stroke 6 weeks ago, not expected to survive. Medical debt approaching $200,000. No criminal record. No known associations with any organization. He looked at Lena. You're exactly what you appear to be. Ordinary. The word stung more than it should have. The elevator opened into a penthouse that made Aurelius look modest. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago skyline. Furniture that probably cost more than Lena's yearly salary. Art on the walls that might have been genuine Rothkos. This was Adrian Voss's world. Money and power and danger wrapped in beautiful packaging. Sit, Adrian said, gesturing to a leather sofa. Lena sat. Her uniform felt wrong here. Cheap polyester against expensive leather. Adrian poured himself 2 fingers of something amber from a crystal decanter, downed it in one swallow, then turned to face her. Let me explain your situation, he said, voice perfectly calm. Elena saw you give me that note. Her men saw it, which means you're now a witness to a failed assassination attempt against me, and more importantly, proof of Elena's betrayal. They can't let you live. Lena's hands clenched in her lap. I never meant to. What you meant doesn't matter. What happened does. Adrian refilled his glass. They'll go after everyone connected to you. Family, friends, anyone who might know where you are. Her father. The thought hit like ice water. My dad. Already being moved. Adrian checked his phone. As we speak, a private medical team is transferring him to a secure facility. He'll receive the best care available, around-the-clock protection, everything he needs. Lena stared at him. Why would you do that? Because you saved my life. Adrian's expression was unreadable. And because I don't leave debts unpaid. Consider it a thank you. I don't want thanks. I want to go home. I want my life back. That life ended the moment you wrote that note. Adrian set down his glass. The question now is, what comes next? I don't understand any of this. Lena's voice cracked. I'm a waitress. I serve food. I'm not part of this world. You are now. Adrian moved to the windows, looking out at the city lights. Elena was my fiancée. We were supposed to be married in 3 weeks, a union that would have connected 2 powerful organizations. Instead, she betrayed me to my half-brother Lucien, a man I thought was dead. Your half-brother? It's complicated. Adrian's reflection in the glass looked tired. Lucien and I share a father, different mothers. He disappeared 5 years ago after trying to kill me and take over the organization. I assumed he was dead. Clearly, I was wrong. And now? Now he's back, using Elena as his inside connection. The assassination attempt tonight was supposed to look like a random hit, tragic crime, devastated fiancé. Sympathetic narrative. Elena would have inherited my position, my connections, my power. Then she and Lucien would have merged our territories, creating an empire. Lena tried to process this. Failed. So what happens now? Adrian turned from the window and something in his expression made her breath catch. Now, he said quietly, I go to war. And you, Lena Carter, are caught in the middle of it. I didn't ask for this. No one ever does. Adrian moved closer, studying her with those calculating eyes. But here we are. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay here, under protection, until this is resolved. Your father will be cared for. Your debts will be handled. And in exchange, you're going to tell me everything you saw and heard tonight. That's it? I just stay here? You have a better idea? Adrian's tone suggested he knew she didn't. Lena looked down at her hands, small, ordinary, shaking slightly. Hands that had served 1,000 meals, wiped down countless tables, done nothing remarkable in 26 years of unremarkable life. How long? She asked quietly. However long it takes to end this. Adrian's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it and his expression hardened. Marcus, I need the council assembled within the hour. Full disclosure, no one is above suspicion. Including me? Marcus asked. Including everyone. Adrian's voice was ice. If Elena had inside help, I want to know who and how deep it goes. Marcus nodded and disappeared through a side door. Adrian returned his attention to Lena. You should rest. Guest room is down that hall, second door on the left. Everything you need should be there. Lena didn't move. What if I say no? What if I just want to leave? Then you'd be dead before you reach the street. Adrian said it matter-of-factly, without malice. Elena's people are good at what they do. You wouldn't make it a block. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. Adrian's eyes met hers. There's a difference. Is there? For a moment, something almost like respect flickered in Adrian's expression. You have more spine than I expected. Good. You'll need it. He turned away, already pulling out his phone, already moving on to the next crisis. Dismissed. Lena stood on shaking legs and walked down the hall he'd indicated. The guest room was larger than her entire apartment. King bed with silk sheets, attached bathroom with marble everything, a closet that held clothes in her exact size. Of course. Adrian Voss was the kind of man who thought of everything. Lena sank onto the bed, still wearing her Aurelius uniform, and stared at her reflection in the mirror across the room. 45 seconds. That's all it had taken to destroy her life. She'd saved a man she didn't know, stepped into a world she didn't understand, and now she was trapped in a penthouse with a crime boss while murderers hunted her. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She'd somehow held on to it through everything. 3 missed calls from Michelle at the restaurant, 2 texts asking if she was okay, 1 from an unknown number that made her blood run cold. We know where your father is. We know where you are. This doesn't end until you're both dead. Lena's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. A knock on the door made her jump. Come in, she called, hating how small her voice sounded. Adrian entered, his expression grim. Your phone needs to go, now. They're using it to track you. How did you? I'm not an idiot. He held out his hand. Give it to me. I'll have my people scrub it, get you a secure line. Lena hesitated, then handed it over. Adrian glanced at the screen, saw the threatening text, and something dangerous crossed his face. They're moving faster than I expected, he said quietly. That message came from inside my organization. Someone on my payroll. What does that mean? Adrian's eyes met hers, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she saw something that might have been genuine concern. It means, he said, this is going to get much worse before it gets better. And it means I need to know, when the time comes, when things get violent and bloody and brutal, are you going to freeze or are you going to fight? Lena thought of her father, alone in a hospital bed, thought of the men who'd tried to kill Adrian, thought of Elena's cold voice planning murder. "I don't know," she whispered. "I've never had to fight before." "Then you're going to learn." Adrian pocketed her phone. "Because like it or not, Lena Carter, you're in this war now, and the only way out is through." He left, closing the door behind him. Lena sat alone in a stranger's guest room, wearing a waitress uniform that smelled like gunpowder and fear, and realized she had absolutely no idea what happened next. Outside the windows, Chicago glittered like a beautiful lie. And somewhere out there, Elena and Lucien were planning their next move. Somewhere out there, her father lay unconscious, vulnerable, unaware his daughter had just traded one nightmare for another. Somewhere out there, the life Lena Carter had built, small and safe and ordinary, was burning to the ground. She should have been terrified, and she was. But underneath the terror, something else stirred, something she'd never felt before. Not quite courage, not quite strength, but maybe, just maybe, the first spark of refusal to go quietly into whatever darkness waited. Lena stood, caught her reflection in the mirror again, and barely recognized the woman looking back. 45 seconds had changed everything. Now she had to survive what came next. Lena didn't sleep. She lay in the dark guest room, staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of Adrian's penthouse settling around her. Voices carried through the walls, low, urgent conversations she couldn't quite make out. Footsteps in the hallway, the distant ding of the elevator, an empire mobilizing for war. And she was somehow part of it now. When gray dawn light finally crept through the windows, Lena gave up pretending rest would come. She showered in the marble bathroom, scrubbing away the smell of gunpowder and terror, then discovered the closet held more than just clothes. There were toiletries, makeup, everything she might need, all in her exact preferences. Adrian Voss was thorough. She didn't know if that made her feel safer or more trapped. The clothes fit perfectly. Dark jeans, a soft sweater, boots that were practical but expensive. She caught her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized herself. She looked put together, almost confident. The illusion shattered the moment she opened the bedroom door. Marcus stood in the hallway, arms crossed, his scarred face impassive. "Boss wants to see you, now." Not a request. Lena followed him through the penthouse, noticing details she'd missed in last night's chaos. Security cameras in every corner, reinforced doors, windows that were probably bulletproof. This wasn't just a home, it was a fortress disguised as luxury. They found Adrian in a sleek office surrounded by monitors displaying security feeds, financial data, and what looked like satellite imagery. He changed into fresh clothes, black shirt, dark pants, but his eyes carried the weight of a sleepless night. "Sit," he said, without looking up from the tablet in his hands. Lena sat in the leather chair across from his desk. Marcus took position by the door, silent as a statue. Adrian finally looked at her, his gaze sharp and assessing. "Your father was transferred to a private facility at 3 this morning. No complications. The medical team says his condition is stable." Relief flooded through her. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Adrian set down the tablet. "The facility came under surveillance at 4:15. 2 vehicles, rotating shifts, watching every entrance. They're waiting to see if you show up." The relief curdled into fear. "Elena's people?" "Lucien's, most likely. Elena was the face, but my brother is the brain behind this." Adrian leaned back in his chair. "Which brings us to our current problem. Someone in my organization is feeding them information. The text you received last night came from a burner phone, but the intel was too accurate. They knew about this penthouse. They knew about the hospital transfer. Someone close to me is talking." "How close?" "Close enough to know things only my inner circle should know." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I've got 15 people I trust with my life. As of last night, I can't be sure about any of them." Marcus shifted by the door but said nothing. "So what do we do?" Lena asked. "We?" Adrian raised an eyebrow. "This isn't your fight, Miss Carter. You're collateral damage. You just told me I can't leave. That makes it my fight whether I want it or not." Something that might have been approval flickered in Adrian's eyes. "Fair enough. What we do is flush out the traitor before they can do more damage. And we do it carefully, because one wrong move could get us both killed." A woman appeared in the doorway, late 30s, Asian, dressed in a sharp business suit that screamed professional competence. She held a slim folder in perfectly manicured hands. "The council is assembled," she said, her voice crisp. "They're waiting in the conference room." "Thank you, Iris." Adrian stood, buttoning his shirt cuffs with practiced precision. "Lena, you're coming with me." "What? Why?" "Because I want them to see you. I want to watch how they react." He moved toward the door, expecting her to follow. "Marcus, full security sweep. I want to know if anyone in that room is carrying anything they shouldn't be." The conference room was all glass and steel, with a table that could seat 20. Only 8 chairs were occupied. Lena recognized the type immediately. They wore different faces, different clothes, but they all carried the same aura of controlled danger she'd seen in Adrian. These were predators pretending to be business people. They all turned when Adrian entered, and their eyes tracked immediately to Lena. She forced herself to meet their gazes, to not shrink back, even though everything in her screamed to run. "Gentlemen," Adrian said, taking his seat at the head of the table. "And lady," he added, nodding to a striking woman with silver-streaked black hair. "Thank you for coming on short notice. I assume you've all heard about last night." "Hard not to," said a man with a thick Chicago accent and knuckles that looked like they'd broken more than a few faces. "News says there was a shootout at Aurelius, 6 dead, including 3 of Elena's personal security team." "The news is wrong," Adrian said flatly. "It wasn't Elena's security team. It was a coordinated assassination attempt orchestrated by Elena herself, working with my brother Lucien." Silence fell like a blade. "Lucien is dead," the silver-haired woman said carefully. "You killed him 5 years ago." "I thought I did. Apparently I was mistaken." Adrian's fingers drummed once on the table, the only sign of tension. "Elena planned to have me executed, claim my territory, and merge it with Lucien's operation. She failed because of this woman." All eyes turned to Lena. She wanted to disappear into her chair. "Lena Carter," Adrian continued, "a waitress at Aurelius who overheard Elena's phone call and decided to warn me. An act of conscience that saved my life and cost her everything." "A waitress," repeated a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and cold eyes. "You brought a civilian into a council meeting?" "I brought a witness. And more importantly, I brought someone Elena's people are actively hunting." Adrian's gaze swept the room. "Which is why I need to know. Who in this organization is feeding information to my enemies?" The tension ratcheted up several degrees. "You think one of us is the leak?" The silver-haired woman's voice could have cut glass. "I think someone with access to my movements, my plans, and my security protocols is talking. Whether that's someone at this table or someone they trust, I intend to find out." "This is insulting," the thin man snapped. "I've served your family for 20 years, and Lucien is family." Adrian cut him off. "Blood didn't stop him from trying to kill me. Loyalty is a commodity, Simon. It can be bought, sold, or broken." Marcus entered quietly, leaning down to whisper something in Adrian's ear. Adrian's expression didn't change, but Lena saw his hand clench briefly on the armrest. "It seems," Adrian said quietly, "that we have a more immediate problem. Marcus just informed me that Elena has called a press conference for noon today. She's claiming I kidnapped her, held her hostage, and that she barely escaped with her life." "Jesus," someone muttered. "She's flipping the narrative," the silver-haired woman said, "making you the villain, her the victim. By the time she's done, every law enforcement agency in Chicago will be looking for you." "Worse than that," Adrian said. "She'll have public sympathy, political cover, and legal protection we can't touch without making things exponentially worse." "So what's the play?" asked the man with broken knuckles. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant, calculating. Then his eyes cut to Lena. "The play," he said slowly, "is that we use the one card Elena doesn't expect. We tell the truth." "You want to go public?" Simon's voice rose. "Are you insane?" "Not me. Her." Adrian nodded toward Lena. "A civilian witness with no connection to any organization, no criminal record, no reason to lie. She overheard Elena planning my murder. She has nothing to gain by fabricating this story." Lena's stomach dropped. "Wait, it's brilliant," the silver-haired woman said, leaning forward. "Elena's whole strategy depends on controlling the narrative. A credible third-party witness destroys that. It also paints a target on her back the size of the Chicago skyline, Marcus growled from his position by the door. The target's already there, Adrian said. At least this way she's useful. Lena stood abruptly, her chair scraping back. I'm not doing that. I'm not going on TV and calling out a crime boss who already wants me dead. You don't have a choice, Adrian said, his voice maddeningly calm. There's always a choice. Lena's hands were shaking again. I saved your life. I didn't sign up to be your weapon. You signed up the moment you wrote that note. Adrian rose to face her across the table. Every second you stay alive is borrowed time, Miss Carter. Elena and Lucien won't stop until you're dead. Your only chance is to make yourself more valuable alive than dead. By making myself famous? By putting my face on every news channel in America? Lena's voice cracked. That's not protection. That's suicide. It's strategic suicide, the silver-haired woman interjected. Once you go public, killing you becomes exponentially more complicated. Too many eyes watching. Too many questions if something happens to you. She's right, Adrian said. Elena can make problems disappear quietly. She can't make a celebrity witness disappear without bringing down heat she can't handle. Lena looked around the table at faces that saw her as nothing more than a piece on a chessboard. Useful, expendable, totally replaceable. I need air, she said, already moving toward the door. Lena, I said I need air. She pushed past Marcus, out of the conference room, down the hallway. She didn't know where she was going, just needed to be anywhere but that room. She found herself in the living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago spreading out below like a glittering trap. Her reflection stared back at her, small, lost, drowning in a situation she couldn't possibly control. Footsteps behind her. She didn't turn around. They see you as a tool, Adrian said quietly. I understand why that bothers you. Do you? Lena's voice was sharp. Do you have any idea what it's like to be powerless? To have your entire life decided by people who don't care if you live or die? Actually, Adrian said, I do. Something in his tone made her turn. He stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, looking more human than he had since this started. Tired. Almost vulnerable. My father built this organization on blood and fear, Adrian said. When I was 10 years old, he sat me down and told me I had two choices: learn to be a monster or die like prey. There was no third option, no escape. So I learned. That's not the same. Isn't it? Adrian moved closer. You think I chose this life? You think I wanted to be the kind of man who has to sleep with a gun under his pillow and trust no one? I was born into a cage, Lena, same as you just got thrown into one. The only difference is I learned to use the bars as weapons. Lena stared at him, seeing something she hadn't expected, genuine understanding beneath the calculating exterior. I don't know how to be what you need, she said quietly. You don't need to be anything but honest. That's the whole point. Adrian's eyes met hers. Elena is polished, practiced, perfect. She's everything people expect a victim to be. You're none of those things. You're raw and real and obviously terrified. That's what makes you credible. And if it doesn't work? If she still wins? Then we try something else. Adrian's voice was matter of fact. But right now, this is our best move. And Lena? In this world, hesitation kills. You have to decide, are you going to let them make you a victim, or are you going to fight back? The question hung between them. Lena thought of her father, unconscious in a hospital bed while men with guns waited outside. Thought of Elena's cold voice planning murder. Thought of the life she'd lost and the terrifying future stretching ahead. If I do this, she said slowly, I want something in return. Adrian raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating? You said loyalty is a commodity, so is cooperation. Lena forced steel into her voice she didn't quite feel. My father gets the best medical care available, regardless of cost. His debts disappear. And when this is over, assuming we survive, I walk away clean. No strings, no obligations, no suddenly I owe you forever. Done. Adrian didn't even hesitate. Just like that? Just like that. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Lena looked at his hand, knowing that shaking it meant crossing a line she could never uncross. meant stepping fully into the fire instead of just being burned by it. She took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and somehow reassuring despite everything. Iris, Adrian called toward the hallway. Get me a media consultant and a legal team. We're going live at 11:30. The next 3 hours were a blur of preparation that felt like drowning in slow motion. Iris appeared with a woman named Rachel, who had the sharp efficiency of someone who'd handled 1,000 crises before breakfast. Rachel sat Lena down and drilled her on every detail of the night before. What she'd heard, what she'd seen, what she'd done. Stick to facts, Rachel instructed. No speculation, no emotion. You're not trying to be dramatic, you're trying to be believable. A lawyer arrived next, a severe man named David, who explained the legal implications of going public with her story. Lena signed more documents than she could read, all of them designed to protect her from lawsuits, defamation claims, and criminal liability. This is insane, Lena muttered as she signed the 7th form. This is insurance, David corrected. Elena will come at you with everything. We're making sure she has no legal ground to stand on. A makeup artist appeared, someone Adrian apparently kept on retainer. She worked on Lena's face with professional efficiency, creating a look that was polished but not overdone. You want to look put together, the artist explained, but not so perfect that people think you're performing. Vulnerability is your asset here. By 11 o'clock, Lena looked like a stranger to herself, still recognizable, but elevated. Someone who might be taken seriously on a news broadcast instead of dismissed as just another server. Adrian found her in the guest room, staring at her reflection with something approaching panic. It's almost time, he said. I can't do this. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. I don't know how to. Look at me. Adrian's voice cut through her spiral. You survived last night. You survived trained killers, an ambush, and getting thrown into my world. You're stronger than you think. Or just more desperate. Sometimes those are the same thing. Adrian checked his watch. We've set up in the media room. Small network affiliates, carefully selected. Friendly enough to air it, big enough to make noise. You tell your story, answer their questions, and then it's done. And then Elena tries to kill me harder. Probably. Adrian's honesty was almost refreshing. But at least you'll die fighting instead of hiding. That's not as comforting as you think it is. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. No, I suppose it isn't. The media room was smaller than Lena expected. Just a simple setup with 2 chairs, professional lighting, and 3 cameras. A young reporter waited, looking nervous himself. Miss Carter, he said, standing when she entered. I'm David Chen with WGN. Thank you for agreeing to speak with us. Lena's mouth was too dry to respond. Adrian positioned himself just off camera, close enough that she could see him in her peripheral vision. Marcus stood by the door and Iris hovered near the monitors, watching the feed with hawk eyes. We're live in 30 seconds, someone called. Lena's hands started shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs, trying to breathe normally, trying to remember everything Rachel had drilled into her. Facts. No speculation. Stay calm. 10 seconds. Adrian caught her eye and nodded once. Not encouragement, just acknowledgement that they were committed now. And we're live. The red light on the camera blinked on and David Chen's entire demeanor shifted into professional mode. Good morning. I'm David Chen, and I'm here with Lena Carter, a Chicago restaurant worker who claims to have witnessed the planning of an assassination attempt against prominent businessman Adrian Voss. Miss Carter, thank you for speaking with us. Thank you for having me. Lena's voice came out steadier than she felt. Can you tell us what happened on the night of November 15th? Lena took a breath and began. She described working at Aurelius, overhearing Elena's phone call, the chilling words about an assassination. She explained writing the note, slipping it to Adrian, the chaos that followed. David asked careful questions, and Lena answered them with as much detail as she could remember. The story sounded insane when spoken out loud, like something from a movie, not real life. But it was real. The fear in her voice was real. Elena Moretti held a press conference this morning, David said, claiming that she was kidnapped and assaulted by Mr. Voss. How do you respond to that? I respond by saying I was there, Lena said, finding unexpected strength in her anger. I heard her plan his murder. I saw the men she hired try to kill him. Whatever she's claiming now is a lie designed to cover her crimes. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Lena met the camera directly. I'm not involved in any organization. I'm not being paid to say this. I'm just a waitress who made a choice and now I'm living with it. But I won't let her rewrite what happened. The interview continued for another 10 minutes, David asking questions while Lena did her best to answer honestly. Finally, mercifully, it ended. "We're clear," someone called. Lena slumped in her chair, adrenaline draining away and leaving her hollow. "You did well," Adrian said, appearing beside her. "Better than I expected. I feel like I'm going to throw up." "That's normal." He helped her stand. "Come on. We need to get you somewhere secure before this airs." They moved quickly through the penthouse, but before they reached the elevator, Iris appeared with a tablet, her expression grim. "We have a problem," she said, turning the screen toward Adrian. Lena glimpsed the image, a website, some kind of forum or message board. Her own face stared back at her from a photograph she'd never seen before. And beneath it, in bold letters, "Wanted, Lena Carter. $500,000 reward for information leading to location." "Jesus," Marcus breathed. Adrian's jaw tightened. "When did this go live?" 7 minutes ago. It's already been shared across a dozen platforms. Iris scrolled through more screens. Dark web, criminal networks, bounty hunter forums. $500,000 is serious money. Every criminal in Chicago is going to be looking for her. Lena felt the room spin. "They put a bounty on me?" "Lucien's getting desperate," Adrian said, his voice hard. "He knows the interview is going to complicate things, so he's throwing money at the problem." "We need to move her," Marcus said. "This penthouse is blown. If they didn't know about it before, they will soon." Agreed. Adrian was already moving toward his office. "Iris, activate Protocol 7. I want 3 decoy convoys and a clean extraction route. Marcus, full tactical team. We leave in 15 minutes. Everyone scattered to their tasks, leaving Lena standing alone in the hallway with 500,000 reasons for strangers to kill her. Adrian returned moments later with a duffel bag. "Change into these," he said, handing her dark clothes. "We need you looking like security, not a target." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere Elena and Lucien won't think to look." Adrian checked his phone, frowning at whatever he saw. "Somewhere I should have gone the moment this started." 20 minutes later, Lena found herself in the back of an armored SUV, sandwiched between Marcus and another guard built like a concrete wall. Adrian sat in the front passenger seat, monitoring multiple phones while the driver navigated through Chicago traffic. 3 vehicles just pulled in behind us, the driver said calmly. Black sedan, gray van, motorcycle. "Expected," Adrian said. "Stay en route." Lena watched through the tinted windows as the city blurred past. They took a series of turns that seemed random, but probably weren't, weaving through neighborhoods that got progressively rougher around the edges. "Sedan is breaking off," Marcus reported. "Van's still with us." "Let them follow," Adrian said. "They're tracking the wrong car." It took Lena a moment to understand. This was a decoy. They were the bait while the real extraction happened elsewhere. "Where are the others?" she asked. "What others?" Adrian glanced back at her. "You said 3 decoy convoys. Where—" Understanding hit. "There are no others. We're the only one." Adrian smiled grimly. "People expect complicated plans. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. Make them think we're the decoy while we're actually the primary target." "That's insane." "That's survival." The van followed them for another 10 minutes before the driver made a sharp turn into an underground parking garage. The van couldn't follow without being obvious, so it kept going. They descended 3 levels, parked, and everyone moved quickly to a second vehicle, a nondescript Honda that looked like it had seen better days. "Seriously?" Lena stared at it. "They're looking for luxury vehicles and armor," Adrian said, climbing in. "Not a soccer mom's cast-off." The Honda's engine started with a wheeze, but it ran. They emerged from the garage on a different street entirely, blending into traffic. No one followed. They drove for 40 minutes, leaving Chicago proper and heading into suburbs that gave way to isolated countryside. The safe house appeared around a curve, a farmhouse that looked abandoned, surrounded by bare trees and winter-dead fields. "Home sweet home," Adrian said without humor. Inside, the farmhouse was the opposite of his penthouse, sparse, functional, designed for utility over comfort. But it was secure, with reinforced doors and security systems that looked military-grade. "We'll stay here until things cool down," Adrian said, dropping his bag on a worn table. "Or until we figure out our next move." "How long?" "However long it takes." Lena moved to the window, looking out at the desolate landscape. Somewhere out there, thousands of people were looking for her, motivated by money and violence. Elena was spinning her lies. Lucien was planning his next attack, and she was trapped in a farmhouse with a crime boss, waiting for the hammer to fall. "I want to see my father," she said quietly. Adrian was silent for a long moment. "That's not possible right now." "You promised he'd be protected." "He is protected, but taking you anywhere near him puts you both at risk." Adrian's voice was firm. "I'm sorry, but no." Lena turned to face him, anger finally breaking through the fear. "You don't get to control every part of my life." "Actually, I do. Until this is over, your life depends on the choices I make." Adrian met her glare steadily. "I know you hate that, but it's reality. Reality is I saved your life and now I'm a prisoner. Reality is you're alive when you should be dead. Don't confuse protection with imprisonment. They feel pretty similar from where I'm standing." Adrian's phone buzzed before he could respond. He glanced at it and his expression shifted, surprise, then calculation, then something almost like satisfaction. "What?" Lena asked. "Your interview just aired." Adrian turned the phone so she could see. "It's trending nationally. 3 million views in the first hour." Lena watched her own face on the small screen, watched herself tell the truth to strangers, and felt the weight of exposure settle over her like a blanket of ice. "Is that good or bad?" "Both." Adrian pocketed the phone. "It means Elena can't ignore you, and it means Lucien's going to escalate." "How much worse can it get?" Adrian's expression was answer enough. "Worse. It could always get worse." And as night fell over the isolated farmhouse, Lena realized she'd stepped into a war where the rules were written in blood, and the only prize for winning was survival. The farmhouse had 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and the kind of silence that made every creak of the floorboards sound like a gunshot. Lena chose the room farthest from Adrian's, not because she feared him exactly, but because she needed space to breathe without feeling his presence consuming all the oxygen. She lay awake most of the night, listening to Marcus and the other guard, a quiet man named Torres, take turns patrolling the perimeter. Through the thin walls, she could hear Adrian on the phone, his voice low and controlled, conducting business even from exile. The man never stopped, never let his guard down, never showed weakness. Lena wondered what that kind of constant vigilance cost him. Dawn came gray and cold. Lena found Adrian in the kitchen, staring at a laptop screen with the intensity of someone watching their empire burn in real time. "Coffee's fresh," he said without looking up. She poured a cup, grateful for something to do with her hands. "What's happening?" "Elena held another press conference an hour ago. She's claiming your interview was coerced, that I threatened your father to make you lie." Adrian's jaw tightened. "She's good. I'll give her that." "People believe her?" "Some do, some don't." He finally looked at her. "But the conversation is happening, which means her narrative isn't absolute anymore." "That's progress." Lena sat across from him, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. "How long have you known Elena?" 2 years. She came into my world through mutual business connections. Beautiful, intelligent, ambitious. Everything I thought I wanted in a partner." Adrian's voice carried no emotion, just flat recitation of facts. "I proposed 6 months ago, thought I was building something that could last." "You loved her." "I thought I did." Adrian closed the laptop. "Turns out I loved the idea of her, the performance she gave, the real Elena, the one planning my murder. I never actually knew it all. That must hurt." "Hurt implies surprise. I'm just disappointed in myself for missing the signs." He stood, refilling his own coffee. "Lucien always said I was too sentimental. Guess he was right." "Your brother tried to kill you before?" Lena asked, curious despite herself. 5 years ago, he decided one Voss was enough to run the organization. Staged a coup, turned half my people against me, nearly succeeded. Adrian stared into his coffee like it held answers. I fought back, burned his operations to the ground, hunted his allies. The last time I saw Lucien, he was bleeding out in a warehouse while the building collapsed around him. I left him there to die. But he didn't. No, he survived, disappeared, and spent 5 years rebuilding in the shadows, planning this. Adrian's voice carried something that might have been admiration if it wasn't so cold. He found my weakness, the desire for something normal, something real. He sent Elena to become that thing, and I fell for it completely. Lena studied him across the scarred kitchen table. You blame yourself. I blame myself for being human when I should have known better. Adrian met her eyes. In this world, humanity is a liability. Love makes you weak. Trust makes you vulnerable. I forgot that, and it nearly cost me everything. That's a terrible way to live. It's the only way to survive. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Boss, we've got movement. Everyone moved immediately. Adrian crossed to the window while Marcus pulled up security feeds on a tablet. Lena's heart hammered as she watched them work with practiced efficiency. 3 vehicles approaching from the east, Marcus reported. 2 cars, 1 van, moving slow, scanning houses. How did they find us? Adrian's voice was ice. Unknown. Could be canvassing the area, could be... Marcus froze, his face going pale. Boss, one of the cars. That's Victor's sedan. The name meant nothing to Lena, but Adrian's reaction told her everything. His expression went from controlled to furious in an instant. Victor, he said the name like a curse. One of my oldest friends. Part of the inner circle. He's the leak, Lena whispered. He's dead, Adrian corrected quietly. He just doesn't know it yet. Torres appeared with weapons, handguns, a shotgun, something that looked disturbingly military. Adrian took a pistol with the ease of long familiarity, checking the magazine with muscle memory. Defensive positions, Adrian ordered. Marcus, north windows, Torres, south. I'll take east. Lena, I don't know how to use a gun. Then stay in the interior hallway, away from windows, and don't move until one of us comes for you. Adrian's eyes locked on hers. Whatever happens, stay down and stay quiet. Understand? Lena nodded, her mouth too dry for words. The men dispersed to their positions. Lena retreated to the narrow hallway between the bedrooms, pressing herself against the wall, trying to make herself as small as possible. Outside, she heard car engines cut off. Doors opened and closed. Footsteps crunched on gravel. Then Victor's voice, friendly and familiar, calling out, Adrian, I know you're in there. We need to talk. Silence from the farmhouse. Come on, man. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Elena just wants to talk, work something out. There's enough territory for everyone. Adrian's voice rang out clear and cold. The moment you chose to betray me, you made your choice, Victor. There's no talking anymore. That's disappointing. Victor's tone shifted, losing its false friendliness. I was hoping we could do this civilized. You sold me out to my brother and his psychotic fiancée. Civilized stopped being an option. Nothing personal, Adrian, just business. Lucien made a better offer. How much? Adrian asked. How much was my life worth? Does it matter? I'm curious what friendship costs these days. Victor laughed, and the sound carried genuine amusement. 3 million, plus a percentage of the Eastern territories once the transition is complete. Not bad for pointing Lucien in the right direction. Lena pressed harder against the wall, trying to control her breathing. $3 million. That's what Adrian's life was worth to someone he'd called friend. Last chance, Victor called. Send out the girl. That's all we want. She testifies that her interview was forced. Elena's narrative holds, and this all goes away. You can keep your empire. Lucien just wants the expansion territories. And I'm supposed to trust that? Adrian's voice dripped skepticism. You're supposed to be smart enough to take the deal. Here's my counteroffer, Adrian said. You and whoever you brought with you leave now, and I'll make your deaths quick when I find you. Stay, and I'll make sure you suffer. Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then glass shattered. Gunfire erupted, impossibly loud in the quiet countryside. Lena bit back a scream, covering her ears as bullets punched through walls. Plaster exploded around her. Wood splintered. North side, Marcus shouted. More gunfire. the sharp crack of Adrian's pistol, the deeper boom of Torres's shotgun. Lena squeezed her eyes shut, trembling uncontrollably, certain that any second a bullet would find her through the walls. "Lena!" Adrian's voice cut through the chaos. "Kitchen! Now!" She didn't think, just moved, stumbled out of the hallway, staying low, and found Adrian crouched behind the kitchen counter. His shirt had blood on it. Not his own, she realized with sick relief. "Basement access," he said, pointing to a door she'd barely noticed. "Get down there. Lock it from inside." "What about you?" "I'll be fine. Go." Another window shattered. Smoke started to fill the room. Tear gas or something worse. Lena ran for the basement door, yanked it open, and practically fell down the stairs. She slammed the door behind her and threw the bolt just as something heavy hit it from the other side. The basement was dark, musty, furnished with nothing but storage boxes and a single bare bulb. Lena huddled in the corner, hands over her ears, while above her the battle raged. She lost track of time. Could have been minutes or hours. The gunfire became sporadic, then stopped entirely. Voices shouted, angry, urgent, but she couldn't make out words. Then silence fell like a weight. Lena waited in the dark, barely breathing, terrified that the next sound would be enemies coming for her. Footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, deliberate. "Lena!" Adrian's voice, rough with smoke. "It's over. You can come up." She climbed the stairs on shaking legs and emerged into devastation. The farmhouse looked like a war zone. Windows blown out, walls riddled with bullet holes, furniture destroyed. The smell of gunpowder hung thick in the air. Victor lay dead near the front door, his eyes staring at nothing. Two other bodies sprawled in the yard, visible through the shattered windows. Marcus had a bandage wrapped around his shoulder, blood seeping through. Torres looked unharmed but exhausted. And Adrian stood in the center of the wreckage, gun still in hand, his expression carved from stone. "We need to move," he said flatly. "More will come once Victor doesn't report in." "Where?" Lena's voice came out hoarse. "Somewhere they won't find us." Adrian pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts. "Somewhere even I don't want to go." 20 minutes later, they abandoned the farmhouse. Lena climbed into yet another vehicle, this time a truck that looked like it belonged to a construction crew, while Adrian made calls to people who spoke in code. "We're going to see my mother," Adrian said after the third call ended. Marcus, driving with one hand while favoring his injured shoulder, actually looked surprised. "You sure that's wise?" "No, but it's necessary." Adrian stared out the window. "She's the only person in this city that Lucian still fears. If anyone can hide us, it's her." "Your mother," Lena repeated. "The one you said taught you to be a monster." "That's the one." Adrian's voice carried no warmth. "Welcome to the family business, Lena." They drove for another hour, winding through neighborhoods that got progressively more upscale until they entered a suburb that screamed old money. Massive houses set back from the road, manicured lawns, security gates, and privacy hedges. The truck pulled up to a estate that made Adrian's penthouse look modest. Sprawling grounds, a house that was practically a mansion, architecture that spoke of wealth accumulated over generations. "Jesus," Lena breathed. "My mother doesn't do subtle," Adrian said, climbing out. A woman waited at the front door. She was maybe 60, but looked 40, with Adrian's dark eyes and a presence that commanded attention without effort. She wore an elegant silk dress and pearls that probably cost more than Lena's yearly salary. "Adrian," her voice was cultured, controlled. "It's been 3 years." "Mother," Adrian's tone matched hers for coldness. "I need a favor. I gathered that when you called, you never visit otherwise." Her gaze shifted to Lena, assessing. "And who is this?" "Lena Carter, the witness I told you about." "Ah, the waitress who started a war." The woman's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. "How refreshingly ordinary. Come inside, both of you. We have much to discuss." The interior of the house was museum quality. Artwork that belonged in galleries, furniture that was probably antique, everything pristine and coldly perfect. Adrian's mother led them to a sitting room that looked like it had never been sat in, then turned to face her son with the expression of someone conducting a business negotiation. "Lucien contacted me 2 days ago," she said without preamble. He offered me 20% of your territory if I remain neutral in this conflict. Adrian's jaw tightened. And? And I told him if he ever called me again, I'd have him killed on principle. She settled into a chair with perfect posture. I don't negotiate with children who disappoint me, and Lucien disappointed me the moment he tried to murder his brother. So you'll help? I'll consider it. But I want to know, what exactly is your plan, Adrian? Because from where I'm sitting, you're losing. Elena has public sympathy. Lucien has resources. You have a bleeding shoulder and a frightened girl who's worth $500,000 to anyone willing to collect. I have the truth, Adrian said. The truth is worthless without power to enforce it. His mother's eyes were cold. You know this. I taught you this. Then what do you suggest? She was quiet for a long moment, studying her son with the detachment of a chess player considering moves. You need to take away their advantages. Elena's power comes from her narrative and her pregnancy claim. Pregnancy? Lena interrupted, then immediately regretted speaking. Adrian's mother looked at her like she'd just noticed an insect. Elena announced this morning that she's carrying Adrian's child, 3 months along, a convenient detail that makes her even more sympathetic. Lena glanced at Adrian, whose expression had gone carefully blank. Is it true? She asked. It might be. Adrian's voice was tight. We were engaged. We were intimate. The timing works. Or it's Lucien's, his mother said bluntly. Given how long they've clearly been planning this, I'd wager the child is his, not yours. But proving that requires genetic testing she'll never allow. So we're back to her word against mine. No. His mother stood, moving to the window. We're back to strategy versus emotion. Elena and Lucien are playing you, Adrian. They're counting on you to react with anger, with violence, with the brutality they know you're capable of. Every time you do, you prove Elena's narrative right, that you're the dangerous criminal, and she's the victim. So what? I'm supposed to do nothing? You're supposed to be smart. She turned back to him. Stop fighting Elena directly. Start attacking Lucien's infrastructure, his supply lines, his alliances, his financial networks. Make him weak. Force him to make mistakes. And when he does, when he shows himself, you end him permanently this time. Adrian was silent, processing. And what about Lena? Marcus asked from his position by the door. She's got every bounty hunter and criminal in Chicago looking for her. Then make her disappear. Adrian's mother's gaze shifted to Lena. Not permanently, just thoroughly enough that searching becomes pointless. Change her appearance, change her identity. Make Lena Carter vanish while you dismantle Lucien's operation. That could take weeks, Adrian said. Then you'd better get started. His mother moved toward the door, clearly ending the conversation. You can stay here tonight. I'll have rooms prepared. But tomorrow, you begin. And Adrian, don't fail. I didn't raise a son who loses to his inferior half-brother. She swept out of the room like royalty dismissing subjects. Adrian stood motionless for a long moment, then let out a breath that might have been frustration or relief. She's terrifying, Lena whispered. She's effective, Adrian corrected. And she's right. We've been playing this wrong. Reacting instead of strategizing. So we're really going to do this? Make me disappear? Adrian looked at her, and something in his expression softened almost imperceptibly. You wanted to go home, Lena. You can't. That life is gone. But I can give you a new one. Different, but maybe safer. I don't want a new life. I want my old one back. We don't always get what we want. Adrian's voice carried the weight of someone who'd learned that lesson the hard way. We get what we survive. That night, Lena slept in a guest room that was bigger than her entire apartment had been, surrounded by luxury that felt like a cage. She dreamed of the restaurant, of serving tables to people who never looked at her, of being invisible and safe and utterly powerless. She woke to find Adrian's mother sitting in a chair by the window, watching her with those cold, calculating eyes. Lena jerked upright. I didn't hear you come in. That was intentional. The woman stood, moving closer. We need to talk, Miss Carter. Privately. About what? About my son. She sat on the edge of the bed, perfectly composed. Adrian sees you as a responsibility, a debt to be paid. But I see something more interesting. I don't understand. You made a choice in that restaurant, a choice that defied logic, that risked everything, that changed the trajectory of multiple lives. Most people in your situation would have walked away. You didn't. Her eyes narrowed. Why? Lena thought about lying, then realized this woman would see through any deception. My father is dying. I've spent 6 weeks watching him slip away, completely powerless to help. When I overheard Elena, I saw another person about to die, and I couldn't. I couldn't let it happen when maybe I could stop it. Guilt, Adrian's mother said, projected onto a stranger, how very human. Is that wrong? It's dangerous. Emotion makes you unpredictable. Adrian understands calculated risk. He understands strategy and consequences. But you operate on impulse and feeling. That makes you either his greatest weakness or his most valuable asset. I don't want to be either of those things. Too late. The woman stood, smoothing her dress. You're involved now, Miss Carter, and involvement in this world is permanent. So I'll give you the same advice I gave my son when he was young. Learn to weaponize your weaknesses or they'll be used against you. I don't know how to do that. Then learn quickly. Adrian's mother moved toward the door, then paused. And Miss Carter, if you prove to be the reason my son dies, I'll ensure your death makes victors look merciful. Understand? Lena nodded, her throat too tight for words. The woman left without another word. When Adrian found Lena an hour later, she was still sitting in bed trying to process that conversation. My mother came to see you, he said. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Because she always does this. Evaluates threats. Makes sure everyone understands the stakes. Adrian leaned against the doorframe. What did she say? That I'm dangerous to you. That emotion makes me unpredictable. Lena met his eyes. Is she right? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Maybe. But unpredictable isn't always bad. Elena and Lucien think they know how I'll move, what choices I'll make. But you make choices I'd never expect. That might be exactly what we need. Or it might get us both killed. There's always that possibility. Adrian almost smiled. Welcome to my world, Lena. Nothing's certain except that everything is dangerous. Marcus appeared behind Adrian, his injured shoulder freshly bandaged. Boss, Iris is on the line, says it's urgent. Adrian's expression shifted immediately back to business. Put her through. He took the call in the hallway, leaving Lena alone with her thoughts and the growing realization that she'd crossed a point of no return. There was no going back to the restaurant, no going back to her small apartment and smaller life. She was part of this now, part of the violence and strategy and constant calculation. And the terrifying part was, some small buried piece of her was starting to understand the brutal logic of it, starting to see the patterns, starting to think like Adrian thought. She wasn't sure if that meant she was adapting or breaking. When Adrian returned, his expression was grim. Lucien just hit one of my distribution centers, burned it to the ground, 3 of my people dead, 10 million in product destroyed. He's escalating, Lena said. He's trying to draw me out, make me react emotionally instead of strategically. Adrian's jaw tightened. It's working. Then don't give him what he wants. Lena surprised herself by saying it. Your mother said to attack his infrastructure, so do that. Make him react to you instead. Adrian stared at her and something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or respect. You're learning. I'm surviving, like you said. Maybe they're the same thing. Adrian pulled out his phone, already making calls. Marcus, get me everything we have on Lucian's supply chain. Iris, I need financial records. Torres, find me the location of his primary weapons cache. The machine was moving again, plans forming, strategy crystallizing, and Lena stood at the center of it, no longer just a witness, but something more. Something she didn't quite have a name for yet. That afternoon, they left Adrian's mother's house with new identities, new phones, and a plan that Adrian admitted was either brilliant or suicidal. We're going to do what Lucien doesn't expect, Adrian explained as they drove toward the city. We're going to give Elena exactly what she wants. Which is? Lena asked. A meeting, face-to-face, just her and me. Adrian's smile was cold. She thinks she holds all the cards. Let's see how confident she is when we flip the board. That's insane. She'll bring an army. She'll bring security, which I'm counting on. Adrian glanced at her. And you're going to help me. How? By being exactly what you are, unexpected. Adrian's eyes held something dangerous. We're going to turn you from their target into their nightmare. As the city skyline came into view, Lena realized the war was entering a new phase, one where she wasn't just collateral damage anymore. She was becoming a weapon. And the terrifying part was, she was starting to like it. The transformation took 3 days. Adrian's people worked with the efficiency of a surgical team, stripping away everything that made Lena recognizable. Her dark hair became platinum blonde, cut short and styled sharp. Colored contacts turned her brown eyes hazel. A makeup artist taught her contouring techniques that changed the shape of her face in photographs. But the real change went deeper than cosmetics. You move like a victim, said the woman Adrian had brought in, a former intelligence operative named Sarah who carried herself like contained lightning. Head down, shoulders hunched, taking up as little space as possible. That needs to stop. I don't understand. Predators recognize prey by body language. You want to survive in Adrian's world? Stop apologizing for existing. Sarah circled her like a shark. Stand up straight, shoulders back. When you walk into a room, act like you own it even if you're terrified. For 3 days, Sarah drilled her relentlessly. How to walk. How to sit. How to meet someone's eyes without flinching. How to speak with authority even when her voice wanted to shake. You're not Lena Carter anymore, Sarah said on the 3rd day. That girl saved a stranger and got caught in a war. The woman you're becoming survives wars by refusing to be a victim. Adrian watched the transformation from a distance, working on his own plans while Lena learned to inhabit a stranger's skin. They'd moved to another safe house, this one in the heart of Chicago's financial district, hidden in plain sight among corporate offices and luxury condos. On the 4th morning, Adrian finally approached her as she practiced the new walk Sarah had taught her. You look different, he said. Lena turned, and the movement was sharper now, more deliberate. That was the point. I meant you carry yourself different, like you're not afraid anymore. I'm terrified. I'm just better at hiding it. She met his eyes without dropping her gaze. Sarah says fear is useful if you control it instead of letting it control you. Sarah's right. Adrian handed her a tablet. I need you to look at something. The screen showed architectural plans, a sprawling estate with multiple buildings, elaborate gardens, and security infrastructure that looked military-grade. Elena's family compound, Adrian explained, where she's been staying since the assassination attempt. Lucien's there too, using it as his base of operations. That's where we're going? That's where we're ending this. Adrian zoomed in on the main building. In 3 days, Elena is hosting a wedding reception for her cousin. 200 guests, massive security presence, every major player in Chicago's underworld invited. Including you? I wasn't invited, but I'm going anyway. Adrian's smile was cold. And so are you. Lena studied the plans, her mind working through implications Sarah had taught her to see. They'll kill us the moment we walk in. They'll try, but we're not walking in the front door. Adrian switched to a different view. Service entrances, delivery schedules, staff rotations. We're going as caterers, just 2 more servers and an army of hired help. The irony wasn't lost on Lena. So I'm back to serving tables, full circle. With a difference. This time you know what's at stake. Adrian met her eyes. This is the end game, Lena. We go in, we expose Elena's lies in front of everyone who matters, and we force Lucien into the open. One way or another, it ends that night. And if something goes wrong, then we die. But at least we die fighting instead of hiding. Adrian's voice was matter-of-fact. I won't force you to do this. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Say the word, and I'll get you out of the city, set you up somewhere safe, make sure your father's cared for. You can walk away right now. Lena thought about it, really thought about it. She could walk away. Disappear into a new identity, start over somewhere Elena and Lucien would never find her. But her father would still be dying. Adrian would still be fighting alone. And some part of her, the part that had written that note in a restaurant that felt like years ago, couldn't live with abandoning someone who needed help. What's my role? She asked. Adrian's expression shifted. Satisfaction, maybe, or respect. You're going to do what you do best. Blend in, stay invisible, and at exactly the right moment, make yourself impossible to ignore. The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. Marcus taught her basic self-defense, how to break a grip, where to strike if someone grabbed her, how to run in a way that made pursuit difficult. Torres drilled her on the compound's layout until she could navigate it blindfolded. Iris provided her with documents that would pass any background check, a new identity, complete with employment history and references. Sarah worked on the psychological preparation. You're going to see violence, she said bluntly. People you know might die. You might have to hurt someone yourself. Can you handle that? Lena thought of Victor's dead eyes staring at nothing, of the bodies in the farmhouse yard, of everything this war had already cost. I don't know, she admitted. But I guess I'll find out. Honest answer. Sarah's approval was subtle but real. Just remember, hesitation kills. If someone comes at you, don't think, react. You can process the trauma later if you survive. On the morning of the wedding, Adrian assembled his team in the safe house's main room. Marcus, Torres, Iris, Sarah, and 3 others Lena had seen but never spoken to. 9 people total, about to walk into a compound filled with their enemies. Everyone knows their role, Adrian said, his voice carrying absolute authority. We go in clean, no weapons until we're inside. Marcus and Torres handle security intercepts. Iris manages communications. Sarah runs extraction. The rest of you maintain perimeter and create diversions on my signal. And her? One of the men asked, jerking his chin toward Lena. She's with me. We work the event as servers, stay invisible until the moment we're not. Adrian looked at Lena. Ready? She nodded, not trusting her voice. They arrived at the compound in a catering van, buried among dozens of other vehicles delivering food, flowers, equipment. Lena wore a server's uniform identical to 20 other women working the event, her blonde hair pinned back, her new face just another anonymous worker. Getting through security was almost too easy. The guards were focused on guests, not staff. A quick ID check, a cursory search of the van, and they were waved through. The compound was even more impressive in person. Manicured gardens, fountains, a main house that looked like something from a European palace. Tents had been erected on the lawn, strung with lights that would look magical after dark. Beautiful and deadly in equal measure. Lena and Adrian joined the catering staff, falling into the rhythm of service with practiced ease. She carried trays of champagne, smiled politely at guests, and remembered Sarah's lessons about moving like she belonged. No one looked at her twice. North Terrace in 20 minutes, Adrian murmured as they passed each other. That's where Elena will give her toast. Lena nodded and kept moving, her heart hammering but her hands steady. Around her, Chicago's criminal elite mingled and laughed, celebrating a wedding while wars simmered beneath the surface. She spotted Elena across the lawn, radiant in a designer dress, one hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach, playing the role of victimized mother-to-be with practiced perfection. Men clustered around her, offering sympathy and support, buying the performance completely. And beside her, Lucien. Lena had never seen him before, but she knew him instantly. He had Adrian's height, Adrian's sharp features, but where Adrian was controlled intensity, Lucien was barely contained chaos. He smiled too wide, laughed too loud, commanded attention through sheer force of personality. The brothers could have been twins if not for the madness dancing in Lucien's eyes. Beautiful, isn't it? A voice said beside her. Lena turned to find an older woman, one of the guests, smiling at her. The wedding? Lena asked carefully. The performance. Elena playing the tragic heroine, Lucien playing the protective friend, everyone pretending they don't know this is all about territory and power. The woman's smile was knowing. You're new to this world, aren't you? Lena's pulse spiked. I'm just serving champagne, ma'am. Of course you are. The woman took a glass from Lena's tray. A word of advice, dear. In this world, the servers see everything and survive because they're invisible. Stay invisible tonight. Things are going to get interesting. She walked away before Lena could respond. 15 minutes until the toast. Lena repositioned herself near the North Terrace, watching as staff set up a microphone and sound system. Elena and Lucien moved through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, building their moment. Adrian appeared beside her, carrying his own tray with the ease of someone who'd done this before. "Everyone's in position," he murmured. "When Elena starts her toast, I need you to do exactly what I say, when I say it. No hesitation." "What are you planning?" "To give her the audience she wants, and then take it away." Adrian's smile was sharp. "Trust me." The guests began gathering on the terrace. Elena took her position at the microphone, Lucien standing supportively beside her. Cameras appeared. Someone was recording this for posterity, or more likely for propaganda. Elena tapped the microphone, and the crowd quieted. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice warm and genuine sounding. "This is such a special day, celebrating love and family. It means everything to have you all here, especially during such a difficult time." Murmurs of sympathy from the crowd. As many of you know, I've been through a terrible ordeal. The man I loved, the man I was going to marry, revealed himself to be someone I never truly knew, someone dangerous and violent. Her voice caught perfectly. I barely escaped with my life and with the life of my unborn child. More murmurs. Anger now, directed at the absent Adrian. But I'm not here to dwell on darkness. I'm here to celebrate light, to celebrate family, to celebrate the people who stood by me when I needed them most. Elena's smile was radiant. People like Lucien, who's been a true friend when I had nowhere else to turn. Lucien stepped forward, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. The crowd ate it up. "Now," Adrian whispered. Lena didn't hesitate. She moved forward through the crowd, not invisible anymore, but deliberate, purposeful. She reached the front just as Elena was preparing to continue. "That's a beautiful story," Lena said clearly, her voice carrying. "Too bad it's complete fiction." The crowd turned as one. Elena's smile froze. Lucien's hand dropped to his side, close to where Lena knew he probably carried a weapon. "Who are you?" Elena demanded. "You know exactly who I am." Lena stepped closer, Sarah's lessons keeping her spine straight, her voice steady. "I'm the waitress who overheard you planning Adrian Voss's murder, the witness you've been trying to kill for the past 2 weeks, the inconvenient truth you can't make disappear." Shocked silence rippled through the guests. "This woman is delusional," Elena said smoothly, but Lena saw the calculation in her eyes. "She's been harassing me, making wild accusations." "I overheard your phone call," Lena cut her off. "You told someone that Adrian would be dead by midnight, that you'd own everything he built. You planned his assassination down to the detail, make it look like a robbery, find you traumatized with your engagement ring still on your finger." "Lies," Elena hissed. "Then explain why your personal security team was at that restaurant, why they tried to kill him the moment I warned him." Lena's voice was getting stronger now, fed by anger she'd been holding back for weeks. "Explain why you put a bounty on my head, why you're so desperate to silence someone who should just be a crazy woman making accusations." Lucien moved then, stepping between them. "You've got courage walking in here, I'll give you that. Also stupidity. Do you have any idea how many people in this crowd would kill you for that bounty?" "About 53, Adrian said, stepping out of the crowd. "I counted." The reaction was immediate and electric. Guests gasped. Several reached for concealed weapons. Security personnel appeared from everywhere, guns drawn. Adrian stood calm in the center of the chaos, looking like he'd just arrived at a party he was hosting. "Hello, brother," he said to Lucien. "Hello, Elena. Lovely wedding. Mind if I crash?" "Kill him," Lucien snarled at his security. "I wouldn't," Adrian said mildly. "Because the moment your men pull those triggers, 53 different cameras that are currently live streaming this event to every major news outlet in Chicago will capture you murdering me in cold blood. Hard to maintain your victim narrative when the whole world watches you commit murder." Lena saw Lucien's eyes flick around the garden, suddenly noticing what Adrian's team had spent the afternoon setting up: hidden cameras, audio equipment, broadcasting infrastructure disguised as wedding decorations. "You're bluffing," Elena said, but her voice carried uncertainty. "Am I?" Adrian pulled out his phone, showing a live feed view counter climbing into the thousands. "Every word you just said is being heard by people who matter. Every threat Lucien just made. All of it. Public record." This proves nothing, Lucian said, but he'd stopped moving toward Adrian. Your word against ours. Not just my word, Adrian gestured to Lena. Hers. And I think people are going to find her more credible than a woman who's been lying about everything from the start. That child is yours, Elena said desperately. Whatever else happened, that's real. You can't deny. I don't have to deny anything. I just have to request a paternity test. Adrian's smile was cold. Which I'm sure you'll happily submit to, right? Since you're so certain. Elena's face went pale. Or, Adrian continued, we could skip the test and go straight to the truth. That baby is Lucien's, isn't it? Probably has been from the start. The whole engagement was just a way to get close to me, to make me vulnerable. How long have you two been working together? A year? 2? Shut up, Lucian growled. 5 years, Adrian said, suddenly certain. Since the warehouse. Since I thought I killed you. You survived, found Elena, and spent 5 years building this plan. Infiltrate my life, get me to trust her, get me to marry her, and then take everything. The silence that fell was damning in its completeness. It would have worked too, Lucian said finally, his smile returning with genuine amusement. If not for a waitress with a conscience. Funny how the smallest things ruin the best plans. He moved fast, faster than Lena expected. One moment he was standing still, the next his hand was around her throat, a gun pressed to her temple. Here's the new plan, Lucien said, his voice surprisingly calm. Everyone backs off, or I paint the terrace with her brains. Adrian didn't move, but Lena saw his hand clench. Let her go. This is between us. She made it between all of us when she wrote that note. Lucian's grip tightened. You want to save her, Adrian? Trade your life for hers. Right now, right here. Don't, Lena gasped. Don't you dare. Quiet, Lucian hissed. Adrian took a step forward, hands raised. Fine, let her go, and I'm yours. Adrian, no, Marcus's voice from somewhere in the crowd. I said quiet. Lucian's finger tightened on the trigger. Time seemed to slow down. Lena remembered Sarah's training. Don't think, react. She drove her elbow back into Lucian's ribs, exactly where Marcus had shown her the solar plexus lived. Lucian's grip loosened for just a second. Not much, but enough. Lena dropped her weight, slipping down and away, and Adrian moved. He covered the distance between them in 3 strides, catching Lucian's gun hand and twisting. The weapon discharged into the air. Guests screamed and scattered. Then Adrian and Lucien were fighting in earnest, brutal, efficient, the violence of brothers who'd been trying to kill each other for years. They crashed through decorations, shattered glasses, moved with the terrible grace of trained killers. Elena ran. Stop her, Adrian shouted between blows. Lena didn't think. She ran after Elena, catching her at the garden's edge. Elena spun, and suddenly there was a knife in her hand, small, decorative, but sharp enough to kill. You ruined everything, Elena snarled, slashing at Lena's face. Lena jerked back, barely avoiding the blade. Sarah's voice in her head, hesitation kills. She grabbed a champagne bottle from a nearby table and swung hard. It connected with Elena's wrist, sending the knife flying. Elena lunged for it, but Lena was faster. She kicked the blade away and grabbed Elena by her perfectly styled hair. You tried to kill an innocent man, Lena said, her voice shaking with rage. You put a bounty on my head. You threatened my father. I'm done being afraid of you. Elena's smile was vicious even in defeat. You think this ends with me? You think you can walk away from this world now? You're marked, little waitress. You'll never be safe again. Maybe not, Lena said, but at least I'll be alive. She drove her fist into Elena's face. Not a perfect punch, but effective enough. Elena dropped like a stone. Lena turned back to find Adrian and Lucien still fighting. They were evenly matched, each knowing the other's moves, each anticipating the next attack. Blood streaked both their faces. Then Lucien made a mistake, overextended on a punch, left himself open for half a second. Adrian didn't hesitate. He caught Lucien's arm, twisted, and drove his brother to his knees. It's over, Adrian said, breathing hard. You lost. Lucien laughed, blood dripping from his mouth. Did I? Look around, brother. Half these people are on my payroll. You think they'll let you walk out of here? They will when the police arrive in approximately 90 seconds, Iris said, appearing with a phone. I called them 15 minutes ago. Told them there was a hostage situation at this address. They're coming in hot. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Lucien's smile finally died. You called the cops. You never call the cops. I'm trying something new, Adrian said. It's called letting the legal system do what I can't. Put you somewhere I don't have to keep killing you. Police vehicles flooded the compound. Officers poured in, weapons drawn, shouting orders. The carefully orchestrated wedding dissolved into chaos. Adrian let the police take Lucien, watched his brother get handcuffed and dragged away, still laughing like this was all some joke only he understood. Elena woke up to find herself in custody, her perfect victim narrative destroyed by her own words caught on camera and broadcast to thousands. It was over. Lena stood in the wreckage of the terrace, her server's uniform torn, her new blonde hair disheveled, her hands shaking with adrenaline come down. Adrian found her there, looking almost as wrecked as she felt. You okay? He asked. I punched someone in the face. I saw. Not bad form for a first time. I didn't hesitate. Lena stared at her hands. She came at me with a knife, and I just reacted like it was nothing. That's survival. Adrian's voice was gentle. That's what this world teaches you. I don't know if I like what I'm becoming. You're becoming someone who doesn't let other people write their story. Adrian touched her shoulder carefully. That's not a bad thing, Lena. Police were separating guests, taking statements, securing the scene. Marcus appeared beside them, his expression relieved. We need to give statements, he said. Probably going to be here for hours, maybe days. Worth it, Adrian said, watching as Lucien was loaded into a police car. This time he goes somewhere I can't reach him, prison or death. Either way, it's finished. But as they stood there among the ruins of Elena's carefully constructed lies, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that nothing was ever really finished in this world. Wars ended. New ones began. The only question was whether you survived to see what came next. The police station smelled like stale coffee and fluorescent exhaustion. Lena sat in an interview room for 6 hours, telling her story to 3 different detectives who looked at her like she'd walked out of a movie instead of real life. A waitress who'd overheard a murder plot, a crime boss who'd live-streamed his own vindication, a wedding that had ended in arrests broadcast to half of Chicago. It sounded insane even to Lena, and she'd lived through it. Miss Carter, the lead detective said, a woman named Rodriguez with tired eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. I want to be clear about something. The footage you and Mr. Voss provided is extraordinary evidence. Elena Moretti and Lucien Voss are both in custody, facing charges that will likely put them away for decades. That's good, Lena said carefully. It is. But here's the problem. Rodriguez leaned forward. Adrian Voss isn't exactly a choir boy. We know who he is, what he does. And while you've helped us take down 2 dangerous criminals, you've also allied yourself with a 3rd. He saved my life, multiple times. I understand that, but moving forward, you need to understand the position you're in. Rodriguez's voice softened slightly. You're a civilian who got caught in a war between criminals. That makes you vulnerable. It also makes you valuable as a witness in multiple ongoing investigations. We can offer you protection, relocation, a fresh start away from all of this. Lena thought about it. A fresh start. New city. New name. Leave Chicago and Adrian and everything behind. 6 weeks ago, she would have taken that offer without hesitation. I appreciate the offer, Lena said slowly, but I need to think about it. Don't think too long. People like Lucien Voss have long memories and longer reach, even from prison. Rodriguez stood, handing her a card. When you're ready to talk about witness protection, call me. Adrian was giving his own statement in another room. When he finally emerged 3 hours later, he looked like he hadn't slept in days, which was probably accurate. They're offering you witness protection, he said as they walked toward the exit. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Because they offered me a deal too, immunity for testimony against Lucien's entire operation. Adrian's voice was flat. I turned them down. Why? Because the moment I start cooperating with police, I'm finished in this world. No one would trust me again. I'd be marked for death by every organization I've ever worked with. He pushed through the station doors into cold morning air. Sometimes survival means refusing the easy path. Marcus waited outside with a car. They drove in silence through Chicago's streets that were just starting to wake up, dawn turning the skyline pink and gold. "Where are we going?" Lena asked. "Northwestern Memorial," Adrian said quietly. "I thought you might want to see your father." Lena's throat tightened. In the chaos of the past weeks, she'd almost forgotten what had started this whole thing. A dying man in a hospital bed, and a daughter desperate enough to save a stranger because she couldn't save him. The hospital was quiet at this hour. Adrian's people had arranged everything: a private floor, round-the-clock medical care, security that would make Fort Knox jealous. Lena's father lay in a room that looked more like a luxury hotel suite than an ICU. But he was still unconscious, still barely breathing on his own, still dying by degrees despite the best care money could buy. Lena sat beside his bed and took his hand, thin, fragile, nothing like the strong hand she remembered from childhood. "Hey, Dad," she whispered. "I'm here. I'm sorry it took so long." Adrian stood in the doorway, giving her space but staying close enough to hear. "I got into some trouble," Lena continued, her voice shaking. "Met some dangerous people. Did some things I never thought I'd do. But I'm okay. I'm still here." She squeezed his hand gently. "I need you to be here too. Need you to wake up so I can tell you everything, so I can figure out what happens next." Her father didn't respond. The machines beeped their steady rhythm, marking time in a way that felt both infinite and desperately finite. "The doctors say his condition has stabilized," Adrian said quietly. "The swelling in his brain has reduced. They're cautiously optimistic about recovery, but they can't make promises." "How much does all this cost?" Lena asked, looking at the equipment, the private room, the obvious expense. "Don't worry about that." "Adrian, I can't accept—" "You saved my life," Adrian cut her off. "Everything I have, everything I am, exists because you made a choice in that restaurant. Paying your father's medical bills is the least I can do. It's not charity, Lena. It's a debt. I don't want you to feel obligated." "I don't feel obligated. I feel grateful." Adrian moved into the room, standing on the other side of the bed. "You gave me something I didn't expect, a chance to be better than what I am, to make choices that aren't just about survival and power. That's worth more than money." Lena looked at him across her father's unconscious form, this man who'd dragged her into hell and then fought beside her through the flames. "What happens now?" she asked. "To us, I mean." "That depends on what you want." Adrian's expression was carefully neutral. "You can take the witness protection deal, disappear, start over somewhere Lucian's people will never find you. I'll make sure your father gets the care he needs regardless. And if I don't want to disappear, then you stay in Chicago, in this world." Adrian's eyes met hers. "With me." The offer hung in the air between them, weighted with implications Lena was still trying to understand. "What would that even look like?" she asked. "Honestly, I don't know." Adrian's voice carried rare uncertainty. "I've never done this before, brought someone into my life who wasn't born into this world, but I think you could be good at it if you wanted to be. You're smart, adaptable, and you don't freeze when things get violent. Those are valuable traits." "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a choice." Adrian moved around the bed toward her. "You could work with me. Help me rebuild my organization into something less brutal, more strategic. Or you could do something else entirely, go back to school, start a business, whatever you want. I'd support it either way. You'd just be doing it here, in Chicago, as part of my world." "As what? Your employee? Your responsibility?" "As my partner." Adrian said it simply, like it was obvious. "Someone I trust, someone who challenges me, someone who makes better choices than I would on my own." Lena stared at him, trying to process the magnitude of what he was offering. A life in his world, but on her terms. Resources and protection and purpose, but also danger and violence and moral complexity. "I need time to think," she said. "Take all the time you need." Adrian headed for the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, Lena, I hope you stay. I think we could do something remarkable together." He left her alone with her father and impossible choices. Lena sat there for hours, holding her father's hand, trying to figure out who she'd become and who she wanted to be. The girl who'd written that note in the restaurant was gone, transformed by violence and necessity into someone harder, sharper, less afraid. She'd punched a woman in the face without hesitation, had helped orchestrate a plan that had destroyed two people's lives, had walked into danger knowing she might not walk out. And some part of her had liked it, had felt more alive in those moments of terror than she'd felt in years of quiet, invisible existence. What did that make her? Her father's hand twitched in hers. Just a small movement, barely noticeable, but it was the first voluntary motion she'd seen from him in 6 weeks. "Dad?" she whispered, leaning closer. His eyes fluttered but didn't open. His breathing changed rhythm slightly. The machines beeped faster. A nurse appeared, drawn by the change in vitals. She checked monitors with professional efficiency, then smiled. "His brain activity is increasing," she said. "This is good. Very good. He might be starting to wake up." Might. The word carried so much weight. Lena stayed at the hospital for 3 days, barely leaving her father's side except to shower and change clothes in the suite Adrian had arranged for her. On the 3rd day, her father's eyes finally opened. "Lena." His voice was barely a whisper, rough from weeks of intubation. "I'm here, Dad. I'm right here." Tears streamed down her face. "What happened? Where?" "You had a stroke. You've been unconscious for 6 weeks." Lena squeezed his hand gently. "But you're awake now. You're going to be okay." 6 weeks? He looked confused, frightened. "Your apartment, the bills. All handled. Don't worry about any of that." Lena brushed hair off his forehead. "Just focus on getting better." The doctors said recovery would take months, possibly years. Physical therapy, speech therapy, relearning basic tasks. But he was alive and conscious and fighting, which was more than they dared hope for 6 weeks ago. Adrian visited on the 4th day, bringing flowers and staying carefully in the doorway until Lena's father gestured him in. "So you're the one," her father said, his speech still slightly slurred, "the one who's been paying for all this." "I'm Adrian Voss," Adrian said, extending his hand carefully. "I know who you are." Her father's grip was weak but deliberate. "My daughter saved your life." "That true?" "Completely true. And you put her in danger because of it." "Also true." Adrian didn't flinch from the accusation. "I'm not going to lie to you, Mr. Carter. Your daughter got caught in something terrible because she made a choice to help me. People tried to kill her. She had to do things no civilian should ever have to do. But she survived, and she helped end a war. I owe her everything." "My daughter's a good person, too good for your world." "I know," Adrian said quietly, "which is why I told her she should take witness protection and leave. Start over somewhere safe." Lena's father studied Adrian for a long moment. "But you don't want her to go." "No, I don't. But what I want doesn't matter. Only what's best for her." "And you think staying with you is what's best?" Adrian was quiet for a moment. "I think Lena is stronger and smarter than anyone gives her credit for, including herself. I think she could build something remarkable if she had the resources and protection to do it. And I think she deserves a choice about her own life instead of having it decided by fear." Pretty words from a dangerous man. "I won't pretend I'm not dangerous, but I'd never hurt her. I'd die before I let anyone else hurt her." Adrian's voice carried absolute conviction. "You have my word on that." Lena's father looked at his daughter. "What do you want, honey?" It was the question Lena had been avoiding for days. What did she want? "I want to stay," she heard herself say. "Not because I'm afraid to leave, but because I'm not finished yet." "Finished with what?" "Figuring out who I am, what I'm capable of, what I can build if I stop being afraid." Lena looked at Adrian, then back at her father. "I spent my whole life trying to be invisible, trying to stay safe by never taking risks, and it got me nowhere. A dead-end job, drowning in debt, watching you die while I felt powerless to help." "Lena, but then I took one risk, wrote one note, and everything changed. I became someone I didn't recognize, someone stronger, someone who fights instead of hiding." She took her father's hand. I want to see who else I can become, and I can't do that by running away." Her father's eyes filled with tears. "You're sure?" "I'm terrified, but I'm sure." He squeezed her hand with what strength he had. "Then I'm proud of you. Scared for you, but proud." Adrian left them alone after that, giving father and daughter space to talk through everything that had happened. Lena told him edited versions of the truth, enough that he understood the danger, not so much that he'd understand exactly how dark things had gotten. When she finally left the hospital that evening, she found Adrian waiting in the lobby. "I told him I'm staying," Lena said. "I heard." Adrian's expression was carefully controlled. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." She met his eyes. "So what happens now?" "Now we figure out what comes next. Together." Adrian offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, Lena took it. "I should warn you, my world doesn't get safer just because Lucien's in prison. There will always be threats, always be danger." "I know. And I'm not an easy person to work with. I'm controlling, paranoid, and I make decisions that most people would consider morally questionable at best." "I know that too. So why stay?" Lena thought about it as they walked toward the exit. "Because for the first time in my life, I feel like I matter. Like what I do makes a difference. Like I'm not just surviving, but actually living." She looked at him. "Is that crazy?" "Probably." Adrian almost smiled. "But so is everything else about this situation." They emerged into Chicago twilight, the city spreading out before them like a promise and a threat in equal measure. Over the next 3 months, Lena built a life she'd never imagined possible. Adrian was true to his word. He gave her resources and freedom to choose her own path. She started taking business classes at Northwestern, studying strategy and negotiation and organizational management. She worked with Adrian's legitimate businesses, learning the difference between legal enterprise and the shadow empire that funded it. And she learned the darker skills, too. Marcus continued her self-defense training until she could genuinely protect herself. Sarah taught her how to read people, how to detect lies, how to project confidence she didn't always feel. Iris showed her the financial infrastructure that kept Adrian's world running. Lena became someone who could walk into a room and command respect, someone who negotiated deals and solved problems and didn't flinch when violence lurked at the edges. Her father's recovery progressed slowly but steadily. By month 2, he was in a rehabilitation facility, relearning how to walk without assistance. By month 3, he could carry on nearly normal conversations, though his right side remained partially paralyzed. "You're different," he said during one visit. "Harder, somehow." "Is that bad?" "I don't know yet." He studied her with clear eyes. "Just don't lose yourself completely. Don't let that world take everything soft out of you." "I won't," Lena promised, hoping it was true. Elena and Lucien both faced trial. The evidence, particularly the live-streamed footage from the wedding, was overwhelming. Elena took a plea deal, 25 years in exchange for testimony against Lucien's broader organization. She'd served most of it, barring miracles. Lucien refused to deal. He went to trial with the arrogance of someone who thought he could talk his way out of anything. The jury deliberated for 3 hours before finding him guilty on 12 counts, including attempted murder, conspiracy, and racketeering. The judge gave him 40 years without possibility of parole. Adrian attended the sentencing, sitting in the gallery with Lena beside him. When Lucien was led out in chains, he caught his brother's eye one last time. "This isn't over," Lucien mouthed. Adrian just smiled and said nothing. He'd won. That was enough. 6 months after the wedding, Lena stood in what had been Adrian's penthouse and was now partially hers. He'd insisted on giving her a real stake in his life, not just proximity to it. She'd redecorated her space to feel less like a fortress and more like a home. Marcus knocked on her door frame. "Boss wants to see you in the office." Lena found Adrian surrounded by monitors as usual, but this time he was smiling. A real smile, not the controlled expression he showed to the world. "What happened?" she asked. "Good news for once." He turned a monitor toward her. "Remember that community center proposal you've been working on? The one for the South Side? The city council rejected it last month. They just reversed their decision. Full funding approved. Construction starts in 3 months. Adrian's smile widened. You're going to build something that actually helps people, Lena. Something good. She stared at the approval documents, hardly believing it. She'd spent months developing the proposal. A community center with job training, youth programs, resources for families struggling like hers had struggled. She'd thought it was a long shot at best. How did you? I made some calls, applied some pressure to the right people, used my reputation for something productive instead of destructive. Adrian stood, coming around the desk. You wanted to matter, to make a difference. Here's your chance. Lena threw her arms around him without thinking, and after a moment's surprise, Adrian hugged her back. Thank you, she whispered. You earned it. You've earned everything. Adrian's voice was soft, almost vulnerable. I meant what I said 6 months ago. You make me want to be better than what I am. Lena pulled back to look at him. You're not as bad as you think. I'm exactly as bad as I think. I've done terrible things, Lena. I'll probably do more before this is over. His eyes were serious. But with you here, maybe I'll do some good things too. Maybe there's balance in that. Maybe there is. They stood close, the moment stretching between them, and Lena realized she'd stopped thinking of Adrian as just a crime boss or a protector or a partner. She'd started thinking of him as something more complicated, someone who'd seen her at her absolute worst and still believed she could be better. I'm glad you stayed, Adrian said quietly. So am I. The kiss happened naturally, inevitable as gravity. Gentle at first, then deeper, carrying months of tension and trust and understanding. When they finally pulled apart, Adrian was actually smiling, not the calculated expression he showed the world, but something genuine and almost boyish. That was unexpected, he said. Was it? Lena smiled back. I've been expecting it for weeks. Why didn't you say anything? Because you needed to figure out what you wanted without me pushing. Lena touched his face gently. I'm not going to be another Elena. I won't manipulate you or play games. If we're doing this, we do it honestly. Honestly. Adrian considered the word like it was foreign. I don't think I've ever been honest with anyone about what I feel. Then learn, with me. We'll figure it out together. Together. Adrian pulled her close again. I like the sound of that. 1 year after the note that had changed everything, Lena stood at the grand opening of the Carter Community Center, named after her father, who'd insisted despite her protests. He was there in a wheelchair, still partially paralyzed, but alive and present and proud. The center was beautiful, modern, welcoming, filled with resources that would actually help people instead of just looking impressive on paper. Job training programs, youth mentorship, healthcare access. Everything Lena had wished existed when she'd been drowning in her father's medical debt. Adrian stood beside her as the ribbon was cut, his hand finding hers naturally. They'd kept their relationship private. His world wasn't kind to people who showed vulnerability, and Lena was still learning to navigate the dangerous waters of his empire. But here, in this moment, she didn't care who saw. You did this, Adrian said quietly as people flooded into the center. You took everything terrible that happened and turned it into something that will help thousands of people. We did this, Lena corrected. I couldn't have built this without your resources, your connections, your willingness to be more than what people expect. Maybe we're both becoming something different. Adrian watched the crowd with something that might have been hope. Something better than we were. Sarah peered through the crowd, dressed for once like a normal person instead of an operative. Impressive work, Lena. You should be proud. I am, terrified but proud. Lena gestured to the center. This feels more permanent than anything I've ever done, more real. That's because it is real. It's not about survival or revenge or power. It's about actually making the world less terrible. Sarah smiled, rare and genuine. Don't lose that. This world tries to destroy anything good. Fight to keep it. I will. Marcus joined them, his shoulder fully healed now, carrying himself with the same quiet competence. Perimeters secure. No threats detected. We're clear to relax for once. Relax. Adrian said the word like it was foreign. I'm not sure I remember how. Then it's time to learn, Lena said, squeezing his hand. We fought our war. We've survived. Maybe now we get to actually live. That evening, after the crowds had gone and the center was locked up for the night, Lena and Adrian sat on the roof of his building, looking out at Chicago's glittering skyline. "Do you ever regret it?" Adrian asked. "Writing that note?" Lena thought about it honestly. She'd lost her anonymity, her safety, her illusions about the world. She'd been hunted, terrified, forced to become someone harder than she'd ever wanted to be. But she'd also found strength she didn't know she had, purpose that mattered, love that was complicated and dangerous and real. "No," she said finally. "I don't regret it. It destroyed who I was, but it let me become who I am. I'll take that trade. Even knowing what it cost? Even knowing that." She leaned against him. "What about you? Do you regret bringing me into your world?" "Every day," Adrian admitted. "I hate that you're in danger because of me. I hate that you had to learn violence and fear and moral compromise. But I'm also grateful. You've given me something I never expected to have." "What's that?" "Hope. The possibility that I could be more than just what my father made me, that this empire could be more than just violence and fear." Adrian's arm tightened around her. "You make me believe change is possible." "It is possible. We're proof of that." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city breathe below them. Somewhere out there, Lucian sat in a prison cell, probably still planning revenge. Somewhere, Elena counted years until possible release. Somewhere, new threats were forming, new dangers emerging. But for now, in this moment, Lena Carter felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. She'd started as a waitress trying to save a stranger. She'd become a woman who'd survived a war and built something beautiful from the ashes. She'd found love in the last place she'd expected, with a man who was equal parts dangerous and devoted. The future was uncertain. There would be more battles, more challenges, more moments where survival hung in the balance. But Lena wasn't afraid anymore. She'd learned to fight, learned to adapt, learned that sometimes the smallest choices, like writing a note and slipping it beneath a glass, could change everything. Adrian's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it with the automatic wariness that never quite left him. "Problem?" Lena asked. "Just business. Nothing that can't wait until tomorrow." He silenced the phone and pulled her closer. "Tonight, I'm exactly where I want to be." "Where's that?" "Here, with you, away from the empire and the violence and the constant calculation." Adrian kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for giving me this. Thank you for letting me stay, for seeing something in me worth protecting. I saw someone worth believing in. There's a difference." The Chicago wind picked up, carrying the promise of winter and change and whatever came next. Lena closed her eyes and let herself just exist in this moment, knowing it was temporary but precious. She'd been invisible once, a ghost moving through other people's lives, mattering to no one. Now she stood beside a king of shadows, having claimed her own power, her own voice, her own right to exist loudly instead of quietly. The war that had started with a note had ended with a choice, and Lena had chosen to fight, to survive, to build something better from the ruins. She'd chosen life over safety, purpose over comfort, love over fear, and as the city lights sparkled below them like fallen stars, Lena knew with absolute certainty that she'd choose it all again. Every terrifying, beautiful, impossible moment, because this was her story now, and she was finally, powerfully, undeniably alive.